Hey y'all. I'm having a little user error tonight, but okay, we gonna get on it right now. What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Sabbath with Soul. We in here right now. It's a blessing to be with y'all this evening. I am hoping that everybody can hear me loud and clear. Um, I did get the microphone, y'all, but oh my gosh, I just been so busy with work and everything. I have it set up, but like I haven't practiced with it, and I don't want to bring it to y'all unless I know that it's really going good. So I just want to thank everybody that's gonna watch this, that's watching on the replay, that's gonna pop in on the live. Thank you guys so much for joining me and being with me this evening, right? So, as y'all know, I don't like to take a whole lot of time to get started, just try to jump right in. But you know what? One thing that I do want to start saying to you guys is I hope that you guys have been blessed since the last time you watched the video. I hope that things are going well with you and that everything is proceeding the way that the Father has planned. I hope that even if there's any dissatisfaction with how things are going personally for you, that you could trust that the Father has it all in hand and that his way is the only way, and whether you can see it from the forefront or not, if you just trust the process and trust him, then you just can lean into it. As it's 9:09 right now, we're going to get in on the ones. You guys know how it is. And we're going to go ahead and start with our Shema. And we say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That is, hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And we go on to say, blessed be the name of his glorious majesty forever and ever. Amen. And remember, we're going to build on that Shema prayer, but I'm going to leave it we're going to leave it for a while so that everybody kind of gets used to it. And then we'll add on the second part, and that way you got it committed to memory, right? So we're going to start with our quick review. As you guys know, we're doing our Psalty Psalm series on Sabbath evening, and we covered David as shepherd, soldier, outlaw, mercenary, king, killer, servant, legend, icon, and last Shabbat we added prophet. And the thing about it is, sometimes when you live a certain lifestyle, or sometimes when things happen to you, and it could be whether you were drawn into it beyond your will, or you willfully engage in activities, sometimes it comes back and the scales have to balance out. And sometimes that's a really hard thing to have happen. And trust me, I am speaking from experience, and it's a raw situation. But sometimes that is how it is because it's laws of the universe. And so we see that David wore a lot of hats. And tonight we delve into Psalm chapter 3, where one of those hats that he had worn, it bred something right within his family, and it exploded onto the whole nation of Israel. Okay, so last week we added David as prophet, and so that rounds out a lot of what we covered with the background of David. And we also talked about Selah. We introduced the true meaning of Selah in the Bible as a mystery. Biblical scholars have settled on it meaning to lift up, exalt, or silence or pause. So, in other words, stop and think about what you're reading. So, as we go into more of the psalm, you're going to see this word come up more and more. And so sometimes, after a while, I'm not going to, well, I'll try as much as I can to keep putting up the reminders, because new people will always be watching, and sometimes they may not see it on the previous video. So we'll always try to do the little quick reviews and do at least a little build up on what we talked about before. Remember, we're trying to be progressive, so we're going to move up, up. So the training wheel's going to come off sometimes, okay? So we also talked about the superscript. Remember, we went over all the different authors, and sometimes, and now you'll know what those names mean and who those people are when the scriptures tell you, at the beginning of the psalm, what that is, who that is, that wrote that particular psalm. So I think that the superscripts are cool because it gives you reference into what the psalm is about and what's going on. And that way you can tie the events together with what you're reading, okay? So Psalm chapter 3, the superscript says, "Save me, O my God," a psalm of David, when he fled from Absalom his son. All right? And David goes on to pray, "O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are uprising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God, Selah. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill, Selah." So, the scriptures ask us to stop and think about it, okay? And he, at this point, was beset by enemies. He had enemies round about, and many were uprising against him. Many are saying of his soul, there's no salvation for him in God. But God is a shield, a glory, and the lifter of his head. So he cried aloud, and the Lord answered from his holy hill. So he got an answer, okay? He lay down and slept. He woke up again, for the Lord sustained him. So even though he went to sleep in grief, and he kind of always used this verbiage that, his soul would go down to the pit. The Lord sustained him and would wake him up again. And sometimes when you wake up in the morning, it bears witness, and it behooves you to take a moment sometimes when you wake up. Because if you really think about it, when you go to sleep, you don't know where your soul goes. You don't know where your spirit goes. Now, if you know about astral planing and things like that, and you can control these things and control your dream and stop your dream and go back to your dream, and you have certain things like that, yeah, you have that. But ultimately, where is your waking conscious soul? That's in the Lord's hands. So it would behoove you sometimes when you wake up really to make sure that you take that time to say, "Thank you, Lord, for bringing my soul back to my body." Good night, Delroy. I see you watching. Bless up. Bless up from Jamaica. Yes. So so he says he lay down and slept. He woke again, for the Lord sustained him. And he said he would not be afraid of many thousand of people who have set themselves against him all around. He prayed to the Lord, "Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord." Now, if we look back at David's past, and we talked about David, he done came through a couple of things. And he survived and thrived, and is to the point where he set up the throne and the seat in Jerusalem. All right. So what has been happening to David's haters and David's enemies? They have been dealt with. Okay? They have been dealt with. Despite David's sin, despite David's lust, despite David's unbelief at times, David's enemies was still done away with at the end of the day. All right? So don't think just because you're a righteous person and you might commit sin here and there that the enemy can come up against you. You remember that you just don't encamp with the wicked, which David didn't do. He did wicked acts and things of that nature, but again, he had a contrite heart, and that's the point that we're trying to drive home with this David thing, because he did dastardly deeds, and it went down in the record, even in the New Testament. No matter what he did that was righteous, it still had to be said, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite, okay? and countless other people, that David had to slaughter, whether the blood was innocent on his hands or not. All right. So his enemies were still dealt with. The Lord still struck all his enemies on the cheek and continued to break the teeth of the wicked. And remember that that is also the chant that we must have right now, that the teeth of the wicked must be broken. All right. Have you ever had a dream about broken teeth? Like, have you ever had a dream about broken teeth? Let me know in the comments, whether you watching live or on the replay. A dream about broken teeth is not cute. It's not nice. It's actually very scary. I've had one before, and it usually means something needs to be cleaned up, because I had it a long time ago, and trust me, there was plenty that needed to be cleaned up back then. So I know that, see, it was 11:11 when I just said that, and that confirms what I was about to say next. I know that there were things that needed to be cleaned up. That dream about broken teeth, that dream is no joke. Okay. And David says that the Lord breaks the teeth of the wicked. So it would might be a little bit of an admonishment if you've recently had a dream about broken teeth, or have had a dream about broken teeth. It may mean that something might not be right. That might be the Lord warning you, because if the Lord breaks the teeth of the wicked, then, as a righteous person, remember that the Lord will send you warnings. All right. The Lord will send you warnings. So if you have a dream about broken teeth, that's just a little sidebar. It might be something to think about. Okay. So David said that the Lord will strike all his enemies on the cheek. He will break the teeth of the wicked, and that salvation belongs to the Lord. All right. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And what does that also mean? That we really can't save ourselves. We really can't save ourselves. There's not a lot of cases in which we can save ourselves, because on the one point, you have the scripture that no man can keep alive his own soul, but on the other point, we went over scripture, I believe, on Tuesday, or I think it was last Shabbat, that says that as a righteous person, if you go to the righteous man and try to turn him from his error, whether that righteous man turns from his error or not, the blood of that, well, if the righteous man turns from his error, there's no blood shed. But if the righteous man does not turn from his error and his blood is shed, that blood is not on your hands, and you preserve your own soul. So remember, there's cheat codes. There's cheat codes hidden in the scriptures, okay? And it's up to us to seek it out. All right? So salvation belongs to the Lord. He continues to say, your blessing be on your people, Salah. Now let's take a look at the enemy David had to pray this prayer against. His own son, Absalom, y'all. Okay? His own son. Where they do that at? Well, guess what? Absalom, he was a hot boy. He was as hot as they come. All right. Apparently he had the drip. He also had the sauce, and he had some additional sides, and it apparently came very easy to him. All right. So according to the Hebrew scripture, Absalom was the third son of David and Maacah. Maacah, she was a princess from a prominent Israelite family. All right. So his mom was a princess. And so he was little Lord Fauntleroy, and he played the role very, very well. And it went to his head and his hair. And if y'all already know the story, that's just a little corny joke or whatever. All right. So so when David established the capital and everything, he transferred along at an early age, and he went to live in Jerusalem, where he spent most of his life. All right. So he was a great favorite of his father and the people. He had everybody eating out of his hands. And you guys know people like this. He was charming. He was handsome. He had insinuating ways, meaning like he was quick-witted. He could come off the top. He loved pomp and circumstance, and he loved everything about being a prince. He loved all the, and that royal pretensions is not that he was pretending or putting on, he was it. Okay, it's not tricking if you got it, all right? He was it. He was the son of King David, and he had everything that came with it. It wasn't lacking nothing, all right? Not in the looks department, not in the charms department, not in no kind of ways. He wasn't lacking it. He had everything. So he captivated the hearts of the people from the beginning. Who did that before? Who did that before, y'all? Where he got that from? He got it from his daddy. Remember that's what David did? Remember all the people, how they loved David? Remember we talked about it, how they loved David and they just adored him. And they were saying Saul has killed his thousands, but David killed his 10,000s. Okay, now here comes the DNA imprint. Live and in living color, 3D model. You got Absalom. All right. But what is he missing that David had? Right here, let's look at Absalom's tributes. Let's look at Absalom's attributes and see what he had. Charming manners, okay? So he knew how to tell you what you wanted to hear. How many we know? How many we know of those? How many we know of those? Hot boy status, right? He had personal beauty, handsome, all right? Melanin dripping everywhere, okay? Insinuating ways, okay? That means he knew how to tell you, just, what double entendres and all that. Oh, you meant that. When he just came easy with it, all right? And the love of pomp and royal pretensions, which that doesn't mean pretending. That just meant all the pretensions of court, that he loved all of that. He was made for it. He sucked it up, all right? And he captivated the hearts of the people from the beginning. He lived in great style. He drove a magnificent chariot, and he had 50 men run before him, all right? So what's missing in this narrative that we saw, at least, not at least, but we saw especially very early on in David's narrative, what's missing here? Humility. He's not anywhere writing any psalms, tending any sheep. He's born with the silver spoon. So that's not a count against him. That's not a count against him that he was born with the silver spoon. But by the time they write up now his life from beginning to end, right here, this is Wikipedia. Y'all already know, I'll let you know. From right here, you see that there's nothing about humility attached to Absalom's story, attached to the summation of his life, okay? There's nothing about humility. There's nothing about contriteness. And so if you take it from the root, you look at Jesse, David's father, was at least a humble enough man that he's number one named in the canons, and number two, he obeyed the prophet when the prophet said, this is the son, this is the one, and he let David go, okay? David was his one that was tending the sheep. Remember how a lot of parents now, they won't let you go. How many, you'll even read back in history where the kids had to go to work when they were 6 and, all this and that. Like sometimes the parents don't let you go. So Jesse could have selfishly held on to David and changed the whole course of our history. But he was humble enough, right? So you can infer that Jesse was humble enough. So you can see that David came from humble stock, right? And so now it comes from the root. So now Absalom springs from David. Now, as parents, you start out humble and you really try to do your best. One of the number one things on your list as a parent is to do better for your kids than your parent did, or give them better opportunities, right? So we not going to front that David did his thug thizzle by having this all set up and the seat in Jerusalem set up and this whole entire kingdom set up so that Absalom and his children could be born into a better life under Yah. You can't front on that, right? But Just because your parent did that for you, now you still got to grow up and take responsibility in your own heart of what type of person you're going to be. Okay? Are you going to let these trappings cause you to stumble? And you don't got to be a prince. You don't got to be a princess. You don't got to be a queen. You top of the corporate ladder. You better take a look back. How did you get there? Clean heart, pure hands? Yes? No? Which way did it go? What seed did you sow? I will rhyme on y'all, okay? Which way did it go? What seed did you sow? Because whatever seed you sowed, that's the fruit that's coming, right? And so this story is a perfect example. And so this one I'm not gonna lie, this turned into a two-parter by the time I even was halfway through it, because it needed to be expounded upon, because just so much started springing out of this. All right. So humility is what we see missing, because there were kings of Israel and there were princes of Israel that were humble with all the wealth. All right. They were humble even with all the wealth, but suspiciously, that's something that we see that's missing from the early part of from the narrative or the write-up as it relates to Absalom. All right. So the biblical narrative goes on to say that he had 3 sons and 1 daughter. His daughter Tamar, who is described as a beautiful woman. But in 2 Samuel 18:18, check the number, Absalom stated, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. So it could be that his sons died before he made this statement. And so looking forward, and not only looking forward, looking backward too, a word, which is, basically what we just did, a word can be said regarding generational curses. All right. It's unfortunate that this story just wrapped this up so finely, but it's here for us to learn from and for us to learn how to break these curses if we can. Okay. So, and then I want you to notice something. Absalom had a daughter named Tamar, and he also had a sister named Tamar. Okay. And I think we'll touch more on the daughter as we dig more into Absalom, whether it's tonight or next time. But you just need to see how these ties all come together. So Absalom also had a sister, so David's daughter Tamar. She was raped by their half brother Amnon. All right, so that's also such a hot button topic, and we can see that Judah has dealt with this struggle for a long time. Maybe because we often don't see ourselves as people of the book. I'll put on my clinician hat here for a second and say, look at this. Look at the ties that bind you guys. Look at what has been sitting on Judah. Look at the spirit, the demon of entanglement that has been sitting on Judah. You saw it play out just at the Grammys with Will and Jada. You saw what this spirit causes. All right. Absalom had a sister named Tamar who was raped by their half brother Amnon. So all of the incestuous struggles and just the demonic stronghold that we've dealt with it for some time. So it even touched the household of King David. So I say to you, if you have dealt with this, you're not alone. You might not see yourself in the Bible. You might not have known that this story existed. You might have heard about King David and not know that this was yet another set of trauma that he dealt with, you see? And that leads you right into the post-traumatic stress disorder. And we're going to feature that. It might be Psalm chapter 4. But all of this now starts to lead to a traumatic effect. Generational curses, anxiety disorders, okay? Anguish, pain, depression. All right? It's almost textbook. It's pretty much textbook, okay? So Absalom had a sister named Tamar. So you see, if this is something that you've dealt with, you're not alone, number one. Number two, you know, if you are listening to this, I want you to remember that meditation is something that helped David deeply. It really, really did. And I want you to maybe, just depending on where you are with it, if you think you may be ready to start thinking about it, um, then I want you to try to get to a place where you can listen to some soothing music and just lay back, go within, and just try to sort out your feelings and sort out your thoughts about it. If you have a loving, caring spouse, and it's something that you've talked to them about before and they've been supportive with you, then maybe have a little sesh where you kind of clear out some things if you've had some cobwebs grow around that situation. um, and if you're in a place where this just shocks your memory and you're like, oh my gosh, this just brought something up, and I need to deal with this, then I definitely want you to just think about reaching out to a 1-800 counseling line, or seek some resources in your area. You can inbox me. I am a master certified mental health counselor. If you reach out to me in my inbox, I will find a location in your area or a resource in your area for you. You just let me know, okay? So, so, so Absalom had a sister named Tamar. Now, we all want somebody who is that real ride or die for us, right? And for all of Absalom's faults, Absalom went hard, okay? And I'm just gonna have to give it to him on this one. It was his half brother, but his half brother violated. And punks do jump up to get beat down, okay? So, David's eldest son, David's eldest son, all right, raped their sister, okay? After the rape, Absalom kept it quiet as kept for 2 years. And then he avenged his sister by sending his servants to murder his brother at a feast. So he set a feast to where he invited all King David's sons, invited all the brothers. You remember that movie Brothers with Marky Mark and Tyrese in them? Okay. He set up a whole dinner, a whole banquet for all his brothers. Okay. And he got them drunk. And Amnon, I guess he knew that Amnon really liked to get into his cups, as they say. Amnon liked to drink, okay? And he did that thing Red Wedding style. My Game of Thrones people, y'all already know what I'm talking about. He did that thing up Red Wedding style, okay? After this murder, Absalom had to flee. He fled to Talmai. That was his granddaddy on his mama's side. You know how, like, back in the day when used to be, the guys used to be living up north, and sometimes the girls too, and they used to get in trouble. They get in trouble with the police or whatever, and then their mom had to send them down south. You got to go down south and stay with your grandparents until the heat, what I'm saying, die down. So, like, that's real stuff. That's real Judah. Okay, so Judah had to, it's when you see the ties that bind, you recognize the patterns. And when you recognize the patterns, you can learn how to step up out the mess. You can learn how to rise above. Because sometimes I say, oh, you can't escape your DNA, but the algorithm, the cheat code is Yeshua. We can escape our DNA. We can rise above it. And we can embrace those within our DNA genetic chain and try to cause change, to the best of our ability, and cut these generational ties. But it's important to see yourself in the book, whether it's for the good or for the bad. You have to hold up the mirror and see us for what we are in the book, and then take a look around and see us for what we are. Mirror the times. Remember, prophecy, types, and shadows. All right? We foundational here. types and shadows. We talked about this. All right. It's playing out one way here, and then you can connect the dots, look around you, and see how it's playing out in your own stratosphere. All right. So he had to go stay with his granddaddy on his mama's side. So it took 3 years. So 3 years later, he was fully reinstated in David's favor. So it took 3 years. Check the number. It took 3 years for David to be like, I, you killed your brother, but your brother raped your sister. I understand. Come back. Now, some might say that this is where the tables had turned it. Okay? Some might say this is where the tables had turned it. Who he invited back into his home was not who left, I believe. I believe that it was a pompous hot boy that left, but I believe that what came back was a stone cold killer and a power grabber. And I believe that when he saw how easy it was for him to connive and get all his brothers together, and because all the service, listen, if you got 50 men just to run ahead of you to announce that you come in, you could find somebody to set up a little plot. Okay? And if you can set that banquet up and get your brother drunk, and whether it be out of revenge or not, then you get bloodlust. You get bloodlust. You get bloodthirsty. And then you start thinking that you somebody that you're not. And that's what happened to him. All right. David forgave him, invited him back into the court, but you invited in a poison apple. And he might have been poisoned before, but that bloodlust, it speeds everything up. It accelerates it. All right. So when he come back to Jerusalem now, this is what he starts doing. He starts stumping around. So he's not a young prince anymore. He's an older prince now. And he's eyeing the throne. And remember, let's go back over his attributes. Charming manners. Personal beauty. Insinuating ways. We're going to see those insinuating ways. Love of pomp and royal pretensions. Hearts of the people captivated from the beginning. From the beginning. He already had the people's hearts captivated. Now, what might one say about his street cred? Oh, what might one say about his street cred now on top of that? Okay, see, hot boy in the streets. Hot boy in the streets. Oh, he pop. So now his street cred through the roof. Yeah. You got him. You killed your brother, word up. That's what's up. He raped your sister. You should have did that. No real prince wouldn't do that. You stepped up. Your other brothers ain't even do nothing about it, yo. They the punks. You the one. Like, honestly, if anybody should ascend to the throne, it's you. Right? But look how conniving he is. Oh, he don't even really want that talk. Listen to how he did. He said he built support for himself by speaking to those who came to court for justice, saying, see, your claims are good and right, but there is no one deputed by the king to hear you. If only I were the judge of the land, then all who had a suit might come to me and I would give them justice. Okay? So basically, those same insinuating ways, the charming manners, the personal beauty, the insinuating ways, he activated those. He activated them against his father. Okay? So when people will come to court to be heard by King David, Absalom is off in the cut, saying, you know what? You got a good claim, for real. I hear what you're saying. I really do see what you're saying, but to be honest. Okay, let's say it's somebody who King David ruled against, right? So King David is the king of all Israel. And he may have had governors or whatever, but if you come into the court in Jerusalem, then obviously your claim is important enough to be heard at the seat of power by the king himself. So these ain't no little itty bitty people Absalom is sidelining and side eyeing. He's talking to some major players, okay? So he's saying, so let's say King David ruled against somebody. So if you still big ups at court and you came to have your case heard, the king might have ruled against you, but you still there for the banquet. You still there for the whole day. I mean, it might take 3-4 days for David to hear everybody who's there. So they encamping about him. Remember, he says his enemies encampeth about him. So the way life was set up, the way castle life set up, like it really was like that. They could be there for days and days and days. So these people who might know that the king is not voting their way, they still sitting elbow to elbow. They still drinking wine. They still eating grapes. They still enjoying all the feasting and everything of the life at court. And Absalom getting in their ear. So he like, you know what? I heard your case. And to be honest, I don't even know why my dad is fronting like that. Because if it was me, I would have ruled like this, and you would have got your justice. But you know what? He the king, so it don't even really got nobody next to him to even give a counterbalance. So I guess you guys just gonna have to deal with that. But if it was me though, I would have made sure you got some justice. So he made gestures of flattery by kissing those who bow before him instead of accepting supplication. So that's what I was alluding to when I said Absalom, he wasn't just on no regular game. He wasn't just on no, yeah, yo, you should be the one to step on the throne like Lord Absalom. You really the bomb though. He didn't even fall for that. He went and bowed and kissed their hands. The importance of making people believe their own myth. It is a very, very powerful tool. And Absalom apparently had that down to a T. Okay? So he bowed before them and he stole the hearts of the people of Israel. So he ran reverse psychology on them. Okay? Point blank. He ran reverse psychology on them. And we all know that Absalom understood the importance of long game. And let me tell y'all something. That's another thing. If you don't understand, this is tonight's free jury. If you do not understand the importance of long game, let me tell you about it. Wait. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Because nobody cannot give you justice the way the Most High Yah can give you justice. Okay? Long game is very, very important. You have to be willing to turn that thing over to God and let him guide and direct your steps. If you get too hasty and you want to seek and exact revenge for yourself or get a result for yourself, you may inevitably trip over your own feet. But the importance of long game and having that ability to have that long game, it can be used for good or it can be used for evil, okay? But I'm talking about you'll be surprised at the results. And sometimes when I say long game, I'm talking about 6, 7, 8 years. You got to be able to peep the op, and you got to be able to wait that thing out and strategize and strategize. And they say it's chess, not checkers. I play chess in real life, IRL. It's real. You understand? You have to be able to strategize and use your power of strategization for good and not evil. Well, let's look at Absalom's long game, right? Absalom waited 2 years on a rape, right? His brother walking around thinking everything is all good. Absalom had to be around his brother like all the time in palace life. This man waited 2 years, y'all, and then murdered his brother, right? So he waited. And then he waited another 3 years. He was willing to wait until the heat simmered down before he came back to Jerusalem, right? So we see he know how to wait. After 4 years of talking, you know what, in his dad court, undermining his dad, that's like coming up in Judge Mathis court and telling everybody they need to go to Judge Judy. Like, what are you doing, Absalom? Like, stop it, right? So after 4 years now, he decides to uprise. And he raised a revolt against his dad at Hebron, the former capital, before they moved the capital to Jerusalem. And he then slept with his father's concubines, and all Israel and Judah flocked to him. Now, it doesn't say all Judah, it says all Israel and Judah, both of the nations, the north and the south, flocked to him like sheep. They turned their back on their king, on the archetype, okay, for little Lord Fauntleroy. And sometimes that be the problem. We get carried away by the glitz and the glam. All right? And we got to stop doing that. It leads to nothing but problems. What's new, what's hot, what's fresh all the time. It don't mean that you need to flock to it. Except for the new righteous YouTubers that's coming out. Hey, content creators, flock to us. We have the truth. We got what you need. All right? But just because, I'm just joking, but just because everything is shiny and glittery over there, that does not make it gold. All right? You have to know and use discernment. Because now there's a whole uprising in the country. Because people got carried away by Absalom's flattery. When he intended really nothing good for them, it was just for his vanity and self-inflation. So David now, he only had two tribes, two peoples with him, the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and his former bodyguard, which followed him from Gath. He found it expedient to flee. That's another way of saying he had to get out of Dodge, okay? Because Absalom was apparently bringing the heat. So Absalom was giving David a run for his money, literally and figuratively. David had to flee. Imagine having to flee from your own capital, from your own son. What the heck? Where do they do this at? In Judah, in Israel. In Judah and in Israel. Look around us. Look around us. We have to run from each other all the time. We're going to have to stop if we want to move forward. We're going to have to break the generational curses. So David found it expedient to flee the capital, flee from his son, with only his former bodyguard. So what that tell you? The new cats was with Absalom. All right? So right there, we're going to leave the story with Absalom right there on the cliffhanger. Obviously, you can go read in your Bible and see what happened, or you know what happened, but either way, that'll be fun. Still come hang out with me next week, right? But let's jump back now to the scripture. And let's reread it now with the mindset of this is this man's son and his own people of Israel that he's running against. How many are my foes? Many are uprising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God, Selah. Now, let's enact the Selah for real, for real. Y'all thought David was faking. He said many, 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 3 times. Will you look at that? Many are my foes. Many are uprising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. So what that tells you is that at the taverns, at the government palaces, at all the places that you could think of, they basically on some water cooler talk talking about David, saying, "Yo, the new young prince done took it over, bro. David old but he ain't gonna be able to get out of this. He should have been got off the throne anyway. Look at all that dumb junk that happened. Look at all that stuff he did. He should have been stepped down. Yeah, Absalom really got Absalom is the future. Absalom is for the people. David talking that God junk, like ain't no help for him in God, ain't no salvation for him in God. So you see, Absalom was a vainglorious and flattering person. He remember he was born a prince. It's not tricking if you got it. So he didn't need flattery. He was the prince. He is who he says he is. He is the real deal. Okay? So he didn't fall for the fake funk flex of people coming to the castle, to the palace, dripping sweet honey in his ears. Oh no, no, no. He knew that the honey needed to be dripped in their ears. Okay? That's what he did. And he had all those people speaking against his daddy. All right? And they thought, there's no way God going to get David out of this. He is done. But David said, but you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill, Selah. Because see, when you know what he's praying about, those Selah points, they make a lot more sense where they are, don't they? Because what's missing from Absalom's story? This right here. The Lord being a shield about him, his glory, and the lifter of his head. Also this, the crying aloud to the Lord. And also this, the answer from the Lord, from his holy hill. See, that's missing from Absalom's narrative. That's missing from Absalom's dialogue. Selah on that. Is contriteness, is crying aloud to the Lord. Is the Lord being your, are you proclaiming the Lord being your shield, your glory? You proclaiming it makes it so. You call the Lord, he's coming. He's coming to be your shield and your buckler, the glory and the lifter of your head. Should you cry aloud to the Lord, he will answer you from his holy hill. Salah. You can lie down and sleep and wake up again, for the Lord will sustain you. And you will not be afraid of many thousands of people. And it was truly thousands of people. David was not exaggerating, y'all. That's the number one point that I want to drive home, because a lot of people, they read the Psalm, but they like don't kind of really know like the story that it's attached to. Right? So when you see it this way, you really realize, wow, David is really not faking the funk. There's many thousands of people have set themselves against me all around. Remember, palace life. These people are really encamped all around. If you can't trust the bodyguard that's next to you, if you can't, as a king, if you can't trust your closest regiment, the ones right around you, and if you can't trust your food taster, you're done, right? So they're all around you all the time. And if you can't trust, you're done, right? But because he's able to cry to the Lord, he heard an answer from his holy hill. And he was able to strategize, right? And next week, we're going to talk about how he strategized and what happened. And sadly, against his own son. But when you make a mistake and think yourself who you are not, unfortunately, sometimes it just plays out a bad way for you. All right? Because when David heard back from the holy hill, he said, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek, for you break the teeth of the wicked. So the Lord obviously said to him, I will strike your enemy on the cheek. I will break the teeth of the wicked. And salvation belongs to me. I am your salvation, David. You see, so David turned around and he proclaimed that. So we read these Psalms, these is David's answers to David's prayers. Just please, let's just be clear about that as well. These are David's prayers, and these are David's answers to David's prayers. Now, types and shadows. You can superimpose this onto your own life. And you can pray as David did, just like you can dance as David danced. You can model this. Cry out to the Lord when you're in distress, okay? Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people, Salah. Now, you got an uprising in the palace, in the camp, in the nation. Are those now God's people? Is the blessing going to be on everybody here? People are in civil disobedience. David is your king, not only on the earth, but this is the time where this is a godly king. This is a king that now y'all asked for a king. You had a problem with Saul. You was in disobedience, and Saul was in disobedience, and it all became a cluster, right? But now I have set David upon my holy hill. And now look what the people are doing. Falling for the glitz and the glam. Just because he's David's son don't mean he's David. Don't mean he's king. They stepping out of bounds. They got out of pocket. Absalom got out of pocket and he led the people astray. Now whose hands is the blood going to be on? You understand? David's good people sitting there and enjoying life. And here he come in the court like a slithering serpent, his own son. What is God to do? What is God to do? It doesn't say some of my enemies on the cheek. It doesn't say some of my enemies on the cheek. And it doesn't say some of the wicked. Right? Salvation belongs to the Lord. And his blessing is on his people. Which camp are you in? Which camp are you in? Are you a grace abuser? Are you a wicked person? Are you of the synagogue of Satan? Where do you land? For whom do you stand? If you want to take the farthest hands, that'll be a fly new brand. For behold, old things are passed away, and you will become new. Right? So this rabbit hole went so deep, for real. On this one, when I was preparing the lesson, I was like, oh dear, just like Psalm chapter 2, I feel a part 2. Because if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it to y'all real, okay? The way I would want somebody to give it to me, the way I would give it to somebody if I'm sitting next to them, all right? So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you guys join me next week. I hope that you guys like, comment, and subscribe. I just really hope that you guys are blessed in the name of the Lord God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, under who we ride. We ride for Yeshua. There's no other, okay? That's where I stay. That's where I stand. And I'm going down with that. And the thing about it is, we're not even going down. We going up, all the way up. You heard me? So I hope that you guys enjoyed it tonight. And I'll definitely get busy putting together something for Tuesday and then putting together part 2 of this. And I will see you guys on the one time for the one time. And just remember that, egos trip, but egos really trip. And this is a real fine example. Like Absalom was ego tripping, like he was on that Lucifer, that angel of light. He wanted to be the man before the man. Like he just forgot. He wasn't told. But he gonna get the memo next week. We're gonna dig into it. So yeah, so egos trip, yo. But humble never ever stumble. So I hope you guys enjoyed this broadcast, yo. Soul Maiden out.